Hey guys, welcome back to another video with Lim Reviews. So in today's video, we have two very similar devices here, the Poco X3 Pro as well as the Redmi Note 10 Pro. Right, so both devices here are actually retailing for very similar pricing, and depending on your country or region, the pricing will be as such. Anyways, like I said, both very similar in terms of pricing, but in terms of specifications and user experience, they are actually both very different. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you a very quick overview of the differences between the Poco X3 Pro as well as the Redmi Note 10 Pro. And maybe after watching this video, you will have a clearer idea on which one should you select right there. Alright, so first off, we're going to start off with the design itself. As you can see here, on the Poco X3 Pro, this looks exactly like the X3 NFC from last year. So no surprises over there. It still looks and feels very chunky. It is very thick right there, by the way. And at the front, you do get that tiny dot display at the top. Alright, so moving on to the Redmi Note 10 Pro. Now this design, in my opinion, is a better design. It looks very similar to the Xiaomi Mi 10T Pro, those devices, if you remember that. And I personally like this back design here. It looks more simple and understated. The grey color probably suits me as well. More importantly, it has a slimmer body profile right here. So putting both side to side, you can actually see how chunky the Poco X3 Pro actually is. And the point here is that both devices are actually using 5000 mAh batteries. So a good thing that Redmi managed to put it in a smaller package. Alright, so at the front, it also comes with a single selfie camera in the middle, so very similar stuff right there. Design-wise and build quality, I would say I'm definitely going with the Redmi Note 10 Pro, but that's subjective to you. Alright, moving on, let's talk a little bit about the displays. Now, this is where it gets very different right here. So I'm going to start off with the Poco X3 Pro right here. This is an LCD display, and the good thing here is that it is high refresh rate, 120 Hz, and is very smooth to use. The bad news here, however, is that this is an IPS LCD display, and like I've mentioned many times in my previous video, the sunlight visibility is just not that great, especially when you are outdoors. You won't really be able to see the display itself. Now, it's a completely different story for the Redmi Note 10 Pro right here. This comes with a similar resolution to the Poco X3 Pro. In fact, the exact same size, but this comes with a Super AMOLED display. So colors and contrast levels are just so much better. And of course, we do have 120 Hz here as well. So in terms of display alone, I would say that the win has to go with the Redmi Note 10 Pro. I just simply enjoy viewing pictures, my social media and YouTube videos all on this device right here. So I'm very happy with this one right there. Alright, moving on, let's talk a little bit about the power and the processing that's going on in these devices right here. So starting off with the Poco X3 Pro, this is using a brand new processor from Snapdragon, the Snapdragon 860, which was based on the Snapdragon 855. So processing power wise, it is actually pretty strong, definitely stronger than the Redmi Note 10 Pro, about 1.5 times more in terms of just benchmark scores. And my test unit here comes with 6 GB of RAM. Now, moving on to the Redmi Note 10 Pro, this is actually being powered by the Snapdragon 732G, and my test unit here comes with 8 GB of RAM. Alright, those are just numbers, but in terms of actual day-to-day use, how does it feel? Alright, I'm going to be honest with you, after using both these devices for more than 1 week to 2 weeks now, I must say that in terms of just sheer performance and speed, the win has to go with the Poco X3 Pro right here. So it opens apps a bit faster, games launch a bit faster as well. The graphics are a little bit better as well, but I would not say that it is significantly better than the Redmi Note 10 Pro. This device here is no slouch at all. Launching games and everything is also pretty fast. It's just that it's not as fast as the Poco X3 Pro right there. So I would say both devices are very solid in terms of day-to-day use and gaming as well, but the X3 Pro just has that edge in terms of speed and power. Alright, moving on to the next point, let's talk a little bit about the cameras at the back here because they're very different. Again, we're going to start with the Poco X3 Pro right here. We do have a quad camera setup with a main sensor of 48 megapixels. We have an ultra wide as well as a macro and depth sensor. So again, I'm just going to highlight the main sensor here. We have a 108 megapixel main sensor on the Redmi Note 10 Pro. So in terms of resolution and how much detail you can actually capture, the Redmi Note 10 Pro here definitely takes the cake with its 108 megapixel main sensor. It is just way more detailed compared to the Poco X3 Pro. But again, this is just numbers, but in terms of day-to-day use, how does the photos look like? Well, I'm going to show you a couple of samples right here so you can decide on your own. But if you were to ask me, I would say that the Poco X3 Pro here takes photos that are a little bit more cooler, whereas the Redmi Note 10 Pro over here takes photos that are a bit more warmer. Other than that, I would say I'm going to leave it to you guys to judge which kind of photos you prefer from both devices right here. Alright, now moving on to my next point, let's talk a little bit about the battery in both devices right here. Like I mentioned, both devices come with 5000 mAh batteries, and they do come with the 33-watt charger in a box, so nothing too much to compare about there. They're both very solid and runs for definitely slightly more than a day depending on your actual usage, so you won't have any issues to do with the battery here. But I must mention again that the Redmi Note 10 Pro comes in that slimmer profile, which I prefer compared to the Poco X3 Pro. Alright, other than that, I would say that in terms of just actual use, which one do I prefer and which would I recommend? Now, this is very simple actually. If you have a similar budget for both devices here, you should go with the Poco X3 Pro if you need that utmost performance. So if you're looking for the best performance, the faster device of the two here, the Poco X3 Pro is the one that you should go with without doubt. But if you're like me and you're just looking for a device that is able to perform very nicely on a daily, able to handle games, takes good pictures, and more importantly for me, it comes in this slim profile, definitely you will want to go with the Redmi Note 10 Pro. Another main highlight here is the display that you will be looking on most of the time. This Super AMOLED display absolutely crushes the IPS display on the Poco X3 Pro right there. So I would say that this is also one of the main deciding factors in deciding both devices here. But again, for the most performance, you should go with the Poco X3 Pro, and you can't really go wrong with either one of these devices anyway. Alright guys, I think that's it for my video here. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!